Our recap for the day after Thanksgiving, 11/28. Just took one trade, break even. Kind of a annoying, not annoying session, but a lot of waiting. Um, when I came into the market after I marked my levels, all I was watching, and immediately what I noticed was the market was floating around this area. I seen we had just like 2 days ago we had tried to sell off of this big high right here at 361 right here, and we failed to exit this daily level off of that sweep. And the market open, we were pushing back into that high itself, 376, that had tried to sweep this. So in my mind, it was clear what I wanted to, what I was my ID was gonna be based on. It's is this thing getting sold off for a big liquidity sweep? Because we already tried to sell off of it once and couldn't break the higher time frame level below. And around the market open, we were trying to spike that high. Or maybe we hadn't gotten into there yet. Or we had. So I was basically just watching these two levels, 376 and 361, as pre-market liquidity. And I wanted to see how we behaved at them, and also in relation to the internal highs and lows of that range, to see if this big liquidity sweep was going to fail or if it wasn't going to. So immediately, we tried to hold under them around the pre-market open. Um, and then this thing opened and just tried to break out, and it died off of hold up, is this thing missing some? Uh, okay, yeah, we just died to swept this internal high. Tried to break out off of this liquidity failing, this 376 and 361 failing as a sweep. I'm already inclined that it might fail because we already tried to sweep it a couple days ago and it just couldn't break this daily level. So I'm just watching what we're doing. We try to die something. Okay, maybe this breakout's failing and we might want to actually sweep them. So if we get in line, start holding underneath them, and then internally we can break out, then I want to try and short this thing for a big liquidity sweep. But all we do is push one tick into these internal lows and immediately get bought into this range. So now I'm like, okay, I don't want to trade this range right here from the range of, or once we push up and this rejected off of that old high, I said I don't want to trade this range because this is the range that's outside of the context of my ideas of whether or not this is a sweep or not. Because this high, sweeping this high, is what failed the original attempt for me for this liquidity to hold above. We fed off an internal high. Then we tried to sell off and lose them and we get caught up on these internal lows. So I don't care about playing anything in this range because in this range, more internal things are mitigating my more external ideas. So I'm not going to play it. So basically, that's just what happened. I sat in this chop for like, I don't know, a year. All this time, then I noticed around this point, we started actually stepping back up through this liquidity or whatever, holding it cleanly. I basically just wanted to see what we did when we attempt to break either side of these range for whether or not this is holding or not. Moral of the story, we were holding these things from above generally in this chop, so I was inclined to see if this thing wanted to actually fail them as a sweep. And when we were trying to break out, I was watching that original high, so this exact level, and then whatever internal high was in the area. So on this actual breakout, I was watching this internal high and that liquidity itself. Um, this thing originally broke extremely aggressively with no rebalance to anything within here, so I didn't want to try anything. We failed to push this next high. Once we rebalanced here, off of everything already happening, this failing to sell off as a sweep on a higher time frame, the original sell off from Wednesday failing to break the daily. I'm thinking if we're gonna break out and hold above these ranges, this could be an attempt to try to get involved on this long for this liquidity failing. I'm trading on a 1 minute, so it doesn't have to be the actual move to catch a bunch of R, because my stops are gonna be small. But once this original breakout just rebalanced all these internal things and still held, I was saying, okay, this is actually a point in price that I want to try to get long on the move up because the pre-market liquidity is failing to sell off. We fly above the internal highs of the range. If this pullback is just to rebalance and still hold them up, and then internally we break out, I'm trying to long. So at this point, I asked myself, all of these attempts to rebalance and hold right here, I want to get involved if this is the rebalance. How can I get involved? Well, I can say, okay, what things hold? Once we rebalance and try to break, if we're stalling, what's the thing that's holding that? and it was this wick right here. This wick was acting as resistance to stop this move from pushing up off the rebalance. So this should show me that's an important level, really internally. So if we hold this and then lose the thing that was holding it, I'm trying to long right in here to catch this move up. Because we're holding everything on the rebalance, we're already breaking out. We're holding this internal high, and we're holding up that original high we broke out of. So we're holding, we're holding, we're holding. We still hold, and we break the wick. So at this point, I wanted to long on a retest of this wick, but I did not like the stop loss placement right underneath the range of the wick in this fair value gap staying open, because I don't want to. The only safe stop I see is the lows that had already held up the liquidity from above. This is a super safe stop. But if I want to take entry on a retest this wick, this is a huge position. So if this candle would have already held this wick up from above since we were within it, and this wick had already pushed through, I would have been able to comfortably put a stop right around this area to take the top of the wick. But since there was still room for this wick to get traded through, and I didn't want to have my stop right in this fair value gap, I was like, I don't want to get in any position unless I can get my stop down here. So what I can do is let me try to catch a lower retrace within this wick to the order block wick high right here, to see if I can just catch this position. It's still a big position, but I'm playing an idea for a potential big breakout, and I'm going to be trailing and break even anyways. So I tried to take that order block, and it missed the fill, and I wasn't able to get this. It just held the top of the wick, which is where I normally take positions, but given the context, I didn't really like any stop loss except here, and this was just too big. But basically this thing, I wanted to continue playing if we were gonna hold above this internal range for all this liquidity failing. This thing tried to die, and fail this whole idea. In my mind, this thing died, and all it did was just rebalance this pre-market liquidity, which my whole narrative and idea is based off of. So if this is not gonna, if these aren't selling off and we're still holding above them, and this is a fake sell-off, then I'm still trying to long. I wanted to get long something right around in here once we got back above this daily level, because this internal low is what stopped the potential huge sweep of this range and this retest. I just couldn't get nothing. Um, I'm a little sloppy. I've not been trading recently, but this thing basically just pushed up, rebalanced to this. Um, I took one break even trade just playing this thing failing as a sweep, and this being like a higher time frame retracement back into this after the breakout. Uh, just trying to get along on this internal high if it was gonna fail, and if we were able to regain this original high that sold off here. And I basically just took this, retested this wick, or retested its internal high from above once we broke out with my stop underneath this wick that filled up this thing from above. And I just got break even on this trade. So yeah, I had one try. Like, not the best trade at the end. Like, it still was in line with the idea, but mentally I was fatigued a lot. This was like nearly 2 hour. This was over 2 hours sitting in this. Um, but the ideas were clear. I'm just, this recap is extremely sloppy because I'm mentally not. I'm just not here right now. But during the session, the ideas were really clear, at least in the beginning. Once we got into this range, I was starting to lag off a little, and I got a break even on a day. But it was a decent session.